Gotta make sure. There we go. I see it now.
All right.
We're
So
live.
now we are live. All right. So really excited for Fast Forward episode 4. We've had some amazing guests on the show. Mark Stewart, CEO of Red Zone. We've had the Pineapple Agency. So we've just had so many amazing people. Now we really get to talk about a really amazing topic: independent venues versus COVID-19. What does the new normal hold? So, venues are in a really rough spot right now. The economy is in a very hard spot. COVID has, really kind of flipped the traditional touring model, I think, on its head. And I mean, curious to hear what you're thinking on your side, Natasha, just on, some of the state of things.
I have 2 really awesome clients that I was working with at the beginning of this year, both New York venues, and they, the struggle has been real in general. And I think now it's really a way of, a time to try and figure out how can you still, generate revenue for these venues without them being open. And that there's a lot of different ways that people are experimenting with right now. Whether it's helping, artists with having artists sell their merch through the venues and trying to split revenue and that kind of stuff. I've been seeing some things like that. But I think right now, ultimately it's just checking every day on the news, seeing when cities can reopen in that sense and finding a new normal. I actually saw a spacesuit that was being designed on a mirror. And and it essentially, I mean, it had like a mask and like a breathing tube and a place to
that's crazy.
To put your drink in. You know what? If it happens, I might buy one. I don't know.
I'll say this. Look, I mean, we have an amazing set of panelists today to really walk us through, what the new venue may look like. First, we've got Larry Gold, CEO and founder of SOBs, one of the most historic venues in New York City. If you're an artist in urban hip hop, Latin music, pretty much almost any type of music, really speaking, you've probably either seen, have played, or have, gone through the SOB's rite of passage. And then we got Jackson Lewis here, who is the head director of programming for PIANOS New York City, which is another, amazing staple venue in New York City. And then we got Ari Evans here, founder and CEO of Maestro. And they are an amazing tech and live streaming platform that has worked with the Grammys, Coachella, and clients like Universal. So we are really excited to bring them all in right now. So let's bring them all in. How you doing, guys?
Howdy.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. So like I said, so why don't we just kind of go around to, let everybody who's tuning in kind of get a little bit of background, on yourself and your respective venue and company. So Larry, why don't we start with you?
So I'm founder of SOBs, and believe it or not, in 2 weeks, we'll be celebrating 38 years. And I plan to have a month-long celebration. During that entire month, I'm going to reach back to people that have been involved in the venue from the beginning, from who are still in the business, like Morris Bernstein, who started Giant Step with Jonathan Rudnick, to just to take us from when we were just a Brazilian venue to really the first sort of international club venue to doing now more urban music than any other venue in New York City, be it R&B or hip hop. We've been blessed to have so many great artists on our stage, from Brazilian artists, Milton Nascimento, Gilberto Gil, to Fela. Fela's last US appearance was at SOBs, to just fast forward to, Drake, Chance the Rapper. So, we're looking forward to celebrate during these times. Obviously, we cannot bring people together at the venue, but hopefully, through our Instagram and through social media, we will sort of bring the history to the people, bring the music to the people. And that's what we're looking forward to on the short term.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So, Ari, why don't we bring this over to you? Kind of tell us a little bit about, your company, your tech platform, and some of the things that you guys are doing.
Cool. So my name's Ari Evans. I'm the CEO and founder of Maestro. Maestro is as if Twitch and Squarespace had a baby. Okay. So it's got the white label, customizable ease of use of Squarespace meets the interactive streaming channel concept of Twitch. We started off our business in the music space, working with music festivals like Ultra and Coachella and the Electric Daisy Carnival. And then we started to try to take our business to the music artists. And this was 5 years ago. And they were like, what's live streaming and why do I care about this? So we moved and started to focus on esports and gaming, where we've been focused kind of for the last 4 or 5 years. And then when COVID happened, all of a sudden the music industry immediately knew why we were around and what we were trying to pitch them years ago. And now, we've signed deals with a lot of the majors and also venues and promoters. And it's like, we're really finding that we can help these entities monetize and build interactive experiences very easily for the web.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely, really fascinating, given just where quarantine culture has brought us. I'm sure that a lot of artists and clients are looking to, platforms like yourself to really help them, figure out, how to adjust during this time. So Jackson, why don't we take it over to you? Give us a little background on, yourself and pianos for everybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I am the programming director and the head talent buyer at Pianos, which is another Lower East Side staple. We've been around since 2002. If you're walking around New York City and you throw a rock, you will probably hit someone that has been to Pianos. We're a 2-story nightclub venue. We have, pretty much 7 shows a week on both floors. We offer a variety of entertainment. Pretty much almost anything goes. And, that's the gist.
That's awesome. I used to buy pianos every day when I worked at Sony.
Yeah, SOBs and pianos are definitely 2 staples in the New York City neighborhood. So why don't we, get to some of the questions here. So obviously, as the ongoing coronavirus pandemic continues to, wreak havoc on the live music space, and enterprising artists and venues around the country have been forced to really think outside the box when it comes to playing for an audience. The most recent innovative, what are some innovative solutions that you're seeing in terms of, artists trying to, continue to play music, right? We're seeing a lot of drive-in concerts. We're hearing that may be the alternative to what an arena show may look like. But, we're really curious to kind of get your thoughts around what you're seeing around the landscape in all different venue sizes, whether they're the arenas or, some of the smaller cap venues between, 200 to 1,000 cap to 5,000. We're really curious to get your thoughts. So Larry, why don't we start with you to kind of, get your thoughts on what you're seeing and what you're finding interesting?
Well, it's very interesting in the sense that over the last few weeks, I've been a part of both, independent, venues nationally in New York City, being on webinars and whatnot. And last week I reached a point of saturation personally, meaning everything is so fluid that at this point, I'm actually just going with my gut. I know the big boys, Live Nation, AEG, their plans are nothing is going to happen really till April. From New York City, it's basically I'm looking at Broadway and nothing is going to happen with Broadway at the earliest till September. So for me on the short term, it's like I said earlier, how we can work literally day by day. So for my venue, like I say, in the month of June, my plan is to celebrate, an anniversary through artists giving us shout outs, to giving artists our Instagram, and if they want to run their show. Short term, I want to just keep SOBs as a focus for promotion. No interest in monetizing at this point, because I think for the longer picture, unless you have a good relationship with the landlord and you're able to get one of the loans, I don't know, as an independent venue, if we can reopen unless at least those two sort of situations get settled.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's
yeah. I mean, it definitely does. It's curious to kind of hear, your thought process on this. I mean, and Jackson, let's bump it over to you. I mean, you guys are pretty much neighbors. I mean, what is your thought in terms of some of the innovative solutions that you're seeing artists do, and like what are you guys at Pianos kind of thinking about this, and like, are you guys kind of taking some of the suggestions that Larry's seeing in terms of leveraging your socials more? Like, what's the play here in your book?
Well, I'd say honestly, the best solution I've heard so far is the spacesuit Natasha mentioned at the beginning of the of the live stream, because I just think, at the essence of it, there's not necessarily a clear solution. I mean, these live streams that artists have started doing, whether it's on Twitch or Instagram, and people can donate, that's not something that can support really a venue even for a week, especially a venue in Manhattan when the overhead is really high. And, as I mean, the basis of venues' money comes from, bar sales. And I mean, I've read, they published the name of it. It was the Event Safety Alliance Reopening Guide. That was something that was going around. But, the fact is, you can have as many hand washing stations as you want. You can reduce capacity like they did right before, the full shutdown. And you're still dealing with a problem of a lot of people in a close space. That's what a concert is. At the end of the day, that's what a live concert is. And it's very interesting to me too, because I'm also an artist, and as an artist, I sit here, and I was about to go on tour this summer. I was planning on it. As an artist, I sit here, and things really don't look so good. A lot of independent venues are going to close down. A lot are not going to make it. And, I see the artists kind of getting, the short end of the stick again. As a talent buyer, programming director on the venue side, if your venue can make it through this, and I'm saying till next April, till 2021, I think things could be really good. I think there's going to be a boom. I think people are going to come back. And I think also there's going to be a lot of good supply, because there's going to be less venues picking over. There's going to be a lot of artists hungry to play. So we're going to have more leverage in terms of choosing what programming we want to do. I think a lot of people are going to come out for concerts. And I think, on the other end of the spectrum, I think you might see kind of a huge growth of DIY venues and, house shows coming back to kind of make up for the loss of, smaller independent
house shows.
Yeah.
I love a house show. No, but that's so true and so fascinating that you bring that up, because statistically speaking, every time there's a major pandemic or anything that, affects the world in a serious way where you can't, do things, money goes, like marketing dollars go from people buying things to people buying experiences. There will be a boom, but it depends on how soon, how long people can hold out to get there, especially on the, serving side. But Ari, I'd love your take on this too.
Yeah, so I don't think that people are going back to concerts until there's a vaccine. So we're going to see how long that takes. So it could be next summer, it could be later. We'll see how long that takes to get through the FDA and for the world to actually solve that problem. You are right that I don't think the model of going on YouTube or going on Instagram or Twitch or any of these solutions are good solutions for artists. The music industry loves to like shoot itself in the foot and not give people a way to spend money when they want to spend it. So one of the things that we talk to artists and venues and promoters, and we're talking to everybody, is just charge at the door digitally the way that you charge physically. If people are used to paying, I mean, $20 on the low end, all the way to hundreds of dollars for your event, and you have a virtual festival, and you think $5 is high, I mean, give me a break, right? What we've seen is that people are willing to pay on a pay-per-view basis for high quality, high produced music for the artists that they love. We got to stop trying to do everything for the reach metrics. You're not going to pay your bills with views. You're going to pay your bills with dollars. Dollars are going to come from ticketing. Dollars are going to come from merch sales. Dollars are going to come from donations. So those are the kinds of revenue opportunities that we're embedding into the live stream experience. And artists are finding that like, wow, I can actually make a lot of money this way. So I actually don't think, venues, of course, have their relevance and they're super important, but we're also entering into a world where if you're an independent artist, your living room is your venue. You might create a studio in your space with a green screen and use some of these like modern tools to create a virtual environment in your home. Go direct to the consumer, charge direct. You're going to see it from all different angles. I don't think that's going to take away from us wanting to go and be in a crowded space with a ton of people having a drink. Of course, we're still going to want that. But I think we're just expanding the purview of what kinds of events we're going to have.
So let me ask you then, because obviously, as a tech platform, you guys are really talking to the venues, to the promoters, to Live Nation, all these like different kind of consistories. How do you see like the economic recession really impacting the ability for someone to justify, hey, yeah, I'm definitely going to pay $30 to go see this festival online, right? Do you think that, right now, I think the latest numbers I'm looking at are 40 million unemployed. And the weekly jobs report claim comes out on Friday again. And more economists are saying that we're going to push up 25, 30+% unemployment. So, I mean, curious to get your thoughts on, do you think that the monetization, like even if you can't charge at the ticket, like you were saying, do you think that there's an opportunity to bring brands in that were once spending their dollars, let's say on, sports, which obviously necessarily may not be happening? Do you think that there's an opportunity to take all those marketing dollars that were meant for that and bring them into music through platforms like yours?
Maybe. We're definitely pushing more of the transactional model. And the honest truth about the economics, like you don't expect to sell more than 10,000 tickets to your venue, right? Like, why do you need to sell more than 5,000, 10,000 tickets in a digital venue? I think the internet is focused on, for whatever reason, it's like these reach metrics, like, oh, I've got millions of followers on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what we're finding is that 1% of your Instagram following converts to go watch your live stream, sometimes 0.5%. I think that's very disappointing to people until they realize that if that 0.5% of my audience is going to pay $10 for a show, then maybe I just made $100,000 that show. So like, maybe that's good if you don't have any overhead and it's happening in your home studio. It's actually really good, right? So like, we're thinking about things the wrong way. You don't need mass audiences. You need small audiences that will pay, and that's going to make you the same money, because with brands, it's all about reach, but you're not going to have the reach. No one's pulling these crazy reach metrics on their live streams. So that comes back to the promoter, where the promoter says, okay, well, I have a venue or I have a series of events, and I'm going to put your brand across the series, and that's how I'm going to get the reach for the brand. No individual artist is going to get a brand behind them. Everything's too small. So they can't afford to go in that model. It's got to be a transactional-based model for the audience that actually cares to support. That's my opinion.
So,
really interesting take.
Yeah, well, and I just have a quickie follow-up on that, just as a question for you, off script a little bit, but a lot of people don't want to charge right now because of the ethics of it, I guess. There's a bit of a stigma to charge for your live stream because it's just a live stream. And I'm not saying that is my opinion. I'm just saying that is the stigma right now, is that people are Like, am I going to be a douche if I charge for my show when everyone has lost their jobs that are potentially my fans? Or,
Yeah, it's a
you know,
mistake.
am
to think that
am
way.
I a brand or a venue and I'm going to charge you for this live experience that, you know, cost me nothing? Does that make sense? Like, that is
Yeah,
the
it makes sense
perception I keep
because
getting. So, like, how do you find a way to still be ethical in that sense, without looking like a total tool? You know what I mean?
it's not a matter of ethics. The music industry, for some reason, I don't get why, but they love to like shoot themselves in the foot. Right? We took all of the willingness to pay of people spending, buying CDs, buying all this stuff. What did we do? We forced them all to spend only $10 a month, up to $10 a month on Spotify. Why? Some people would have paid way, way, way more than that. And now we're just giving you the buffet of everything and the highest quality stuff, whatever you want, for $10, right? That doesn't make any sense, right? You're not a douche if you ask people to pay for valuable quality content. Is Netflix a douche? No. Is Hulu a douche? No. If you don't want to pay for it, then don't. That's what separates the true fans from the non-fans. Your true fans want to pay, and they're going to support you, and they're going to access, and they want access to you and interactivity with you. And the ones who aren't, just let them go check out your Instagram, YouTube videos. That's fine. You got to have your premium audience spending money with you, and your mass audience that isn't really your fan. They can just pretend like they're your fan, right? Like, who cares? This is about livelihood and monetization and supporting the creativity and the artistic vision. If they can't afford to pay themselves, there isn't going to be any more music. So like, we got to pull away the ethics from the reality. It's not an ethical question. We got to fix the stigma, charge people. They're happy to pay it. We're seeing examples all over the place. That's it. We got to break this.
Ari, I think
Go ahead, Larry.
Is very good for the artist, but as a venue, we don't make our money really from the door. We make our money from food and alcohol sales. So
Correct.
what you're saying is absolutely, I think, ingenious for artists that can go ahead and start doing it. In one night at Cinco de Mayo, we had 2 live streams. We had Lion Babe do part of her international, tour for the United States. She chose to go with SOBs as, as the to do her show. And then later that night, we had this rapper from Mexico, and it was really interesting because the rapper from Mexico was doing it in her living room, was really earth, homemade style, very, quaint to me in a positive way. And Lion Babe's like production was, if it wasn't in the studio, they took a lot of time to make it look really well polished. It was a sophisticated event that went on for free, but I could easily see, charging money for that. So the real question we had with, once it was all over is one better than the other? Do fans want to see their artists like raw, like in their living room, so to speak? Or do they want to see a show that's more polished, more production, etc.? And I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's a great question. So a couple of things. One, I think that there are different types of fans that want to have different types of experiences. Some like it raw, some like it highly produced. And also artists. Some artists want to do the raw thing and some don't, right?
Yeah.
What works on Twitch really often is like people are just producing music on stream. Some artists don't want to expose the creative process to the viewers, right? It just really depends, but there's room for all of it. You're correct that the revenue stream from venues is mainly made up of concessions and all those other elements and not the door. But I think when you transition into a digital context, there's room for you to change the model, right? Like, I know that might be hard to do, but you have the opportunity to bring in to curate, just like you program a series of artists to come through, and maybe there's a series pass, right? Like there's other ways. You got to think outside the box on this if there's not going to be concessions and bar.
I agree. I took a position very different from New York venues. In the beginning when this happened, a lot of the venues were starting, fund me and support our staff, and all of these, to me, very positive moral things to do. But I felt like, so many people are unemployed. Come on, you're asking these unemployed people now to fund the venue. It's sort of the same thing with restaurants. You go to a restaurant and then the restaurant hits you up during this time. Oh, help us pay for, our waiters or whatnot. I mean, I did a really hard decision that very early on, like March 11th, when I really felt this was going to be long term, I laid off every single employee because I knew they would actually make more money on unemployment than trying to save a few of them. And then I felt legally, if you start raising money and you're claiming you're going to give it to these employees, then they're not going to be able to collect unemployment. So it was a lot of give and take. And long term, I see ourselves SOBs. This is going from just giving it away to monetizing, but it's sort of like a slow path to get there. Right now, I just want to keep building data, and then my goal is by midsummer, end of the summer, absolutely going to a monetized situation.
Yeah, see, the one thing is I mean, you're totally right. I always would say kind of the misnomer, I feel like, when people think about venues, are that ticketing has more to do with it. I would always use this example. If we have a sold out show and no one drinks, then that does nothing for us. We'd rather have 10 people, sell 10 tickets and they all drink 8 drinks. We're making more than a sold out show where no one drinks. And then secondly, for me, just programming live streams and content like that, that's great for Pitchfork to do, for a website to do. The place of venues are still for live entertainment. And listen, Ari, I completely agree with you. I'm not going to a concert till a vaccine comes out. But you saw those pictures in Wisconsin of people at the bars, and there are people that will go before a vaccine comes out. Now, I still think it's going to be a long time, but I don't think, my personal view on it is that shifting your whole model as a venue to monetize off digital streams and, all that stuff is just, by the time you've really figured it out, everything will be back open and you'll just shift back to, what you were doing before. I mean, maybe I'm an idealist and a hopeless romantic, but I think live shows are going to come back. It'll just take a while.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you want to just chill and wait it out and fire your whole staff and hire them back when you can, then you go do it. That's for sure. Everyone's got to make their own choices. If that's the right choice for you, then that's the right choice for you. If you want to reinvent yourself and take a new role, then go for it too.
That's definitely, it's a challenge.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think everybody has a very valid point across the board here. Even Live Nation in their last quarterly earnings report noted that Michael Rapino was pretty bullish on live music coming back with a V-shaped recovery. So I think that's important because they obviously have a huge amount of data and insights from, they did over 100,000 plus concerts in their last quarter before all this happened. So definitely something to keep in mind. But Natasha, please.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm loving this discussion, by the way. I love hearing all the different sides. I think it's really important for everyone to hear it and to see kind of where everyone's perspectives are. Because I think, at the end of the day, we're all industry folk trying to figure this out. And, hearing how everyone is handling it and how they're figuring it out is really important. To segue a little bit, one of the most anticipated tours that's been postponed is the BTS Maps of the Soul 2020 show. And the boys are kind of hosting, a live concert in June called Bang Bang Con The Live. And it's supposed to be a 90-minute ticketed event that'll stream on Big Hits fan community platform Weverse. I think it's on June 14th. And basically the question is, do you think that concerts like this, of this caliber, can actually make up for the lost in-person show opportunities, when they're appropriate and they have the right audiences?
I just feel that they can't. I mean, they're a nice substitute, But, you know, the example I'd give is, you know, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard recently, they released a concert film, I think, you know, instead of a concert they were playing, and you could all watch it live with them at the same time on YouTube. And my roommate and his girlfriend watched it, and, you know, they joked, they said, hey, we're turning the lights down, and, you know, we bought expensive beers to fake like we're going to a show. But at the end of the day, it's not the same as a concert. It's a nice substitute to support artists you like, and I think it is cool. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, when things do come back, would you rather sit at home and watch a video concert, or would you rather go and see the artist?
I mean, it depends if you have kids and how old you are and like what else is going on in your life. Do you want to be in a crowded venue? Can you afford expensive drinks? I think that every stream moving forward is going to have every concert is going to have a live stream component. And I think that the promoters are realizing that their vulnerability in these times, if they already had a live streaming part of all their shows, they would not be as like decimated as they are now. So they're going to put resiliency in place. They're going to turn on new revenue streams. And for the fans that are, I mean, I agree with you. There's nothing going to replace going to a concert. Not until VR 10 years from now, where you have haptic feedback and smells and all the other shit. Then you'll really get there. Until then, it's all just a joke. But, you know, until then, I think there's going to be this new revenue stream where if you can't show up to the show, that's $70. Then like, here's your $5 live stream and show up. And why not? They're already producing the thing, right? They already have like all the cameras. They have all the stuff there. Why not stream?
So, yeah. So you're saying that there's going to be like a hybrid model between live and digital. And, you know, do you think that this hybrid model, because everybody's saying that capacities, assuming, you know, people will go back to venues the same way that Jackson was talking about, you know, what was happening in Wisconsin, that capacity is going to have to be dropped at any venue by nearly 60%. So I guess my question to you, Ari, and you know, to the group here is, do we think that a hybrid model could sufficiently make up for that loss of cap? Even though I know it may not make sense from the venue side as much, because you guys still need to make the money from the bar, but I'm just kind of curious, Ari, maybe to get your take first on what you think about how a hybrid model could make up for a loss of cap space.
All right, so let's say that you got a 10,000 person venue and you cut the cap space by 60%, so you're at 4,000 cap venue. So let's just say you were charging, what, $20 for a ticket? $50 for a ticket? I mean, whatever the math is, right? So you're at 4,000, so you lost 6,000 tickets. 6,000 times $50 is what, 300K? Did I do that right? Mm-hmm. Right. So 300K. Right, that's your lost revenue. How many people do you need to sell a $5 ticket to get to 300K? You need 10 times the amount, 3 million people. Is that realistic? Depends on the artist, right? And depends on how frequently the artist is doing a stream, because if they're not changing their show too often, then people aren't going to buy a stream show after show. Now, one interesting data point, we did 2 concerts with Erykah Badu within 1 month. And I was very curious to understand, like, how many of the people who bought the first show are going to buy the second show, right? Well, you know, more or less, we're talking like 25 to 30% people who bought the first show bought the second show also. Now, in that case, the price point was pretty low. It was like $2 per ticket or whatever. But, you know, some fans are going to do this. I mean, in the jam band world, people they're really forward thinking, and you can buy every single live stream. And some people do. They buy every single night show because the show is different, and, you know, the musicality of the artist makes it so, like, yeah, I'll listen to Fish like 50 million times and it's going to be different every time. Okay. Right. Like, it really will depend on the artist. It will depend on the marketing. This is in some ways where the venues might have, like, they act as promoters. Do they have lists? How many people can they drive through the door? Can they create like a series of ongoing programming that drives people to a destination to purchase? I mean, these are all areas where I think the venues don't have as much like of a muscle in those areas, but maybe some of them will muscle up. I don't know. Remains to be seen.
I think streaming,
I mean,
the live aspect of it. I mean, the question is, you know, I see streaming, it's not going away. So, you know, when we do all come back, even to full capacity, I think any venue in their right mind is going to add the streaming content, be it if you're, you know, not in that city or you're in the suburbs or it's raining, or it's this or that, I think streaming is going to, you know, obviously keep adding additional revenue to it. So I don't think you can go back to the way things were. I think, you know, this is a life-changing situation, regardless of business, personal. So, you know, this whole idea of, oh, when we come back, it's sort of when we get to the future, how we deal with it. But going back to what it was is not going to be a reality, at least for me.
I like the sound of the hybrid model if we can figure out how to teleport booze to people in there, you know, as they're watching. You know, if we can zap people frozen margaritas, I think.
Hey,
I think it sounds
maybe
great.
that's an idea there, Jackson. You know, maybe
Yeah,
some
that's
brand
the-
partnership with some liquor companies. You get like a package sent to you or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
People are
That's-
talking to
that
us
is-
about that actually. They
that-
are asking, like, can I buy a pizza from the stream? Can I get liquor delivered through the stream? Right? And we're turning on some of that stuff. So you might see it sooner than you think.
I think that is a great idea. The one thing I would like to say about the capacity thing that has me, even though it's a long while off before the venues come, you know, I bet the smaller venues will be allowed to come back sooner than your large scale venues. And even if you reduce cap, I'm smelling a lot of underplay opportunities of, you know, big artists coming in, smaller cap venues they would have usually never played in the past for more intimate, you know, higher price ticket kind of experiences. And as, you know, a programmer and, you know, talent buyer on the venue side, that excites me.
That is
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think that's likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
I mean, particularly if you pair it with a model that you're talking about, Ari, you know, that hybrid, you know, venue model. I guess my question to you on the hybrid side too, Ari, is how there are a lot of venues across the United States that aren't necessarily like equipped to, you know, produce these really high quality live streams. Some are, and some have like the capability and maybe like the revenue to buy the certain cameras or whatever. But what would you tell these venues who may not have, you know, that much disposable income to invest in getting all that equipment to make sure that's a high quality live stream? Like, I know you guys have produced for Coachella, and like those streams are absolutely amazing. Like, you know, what is, I guess, like the plan, like B or C for a venue who wants to get into the hybrid model, and like how would they go about that? Because I'm seeing a couple questions come through on that.
Drones. I'm not kidding.
Really?
Drones these days have incredible cameras on them. You can set them to follow the artist, and they'll just do a path and do an amazing sweep and stuff you could do with cranes. And it's like $1,500. Go buy a drone, put cameras on it, stream to the world. Like, if you can't afford $1,500 for your production, then don't try. Right?
That's true. And they have
drones.
drones. They have drones nowadays.
Shit.
You can fly indoors, so there's no reason why it's not possible. I don't know of any that can live stream, but I'm sure it's just an easy change or fix
It's
that you can
pretty
do on
easy.
the camera. Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
figure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Drones.
Wow.
that makes total sense.
I mean, Larry, Jackson, are you guys open?
I'm going to be calling Ari in July, believe me.
I know some of these
Drones.
ideas are kind of out there, but like, drones are pretty safe and they're pretty easy to manage, and they're pretty quiet if you get the right ones, and the video cameras are awesome.
I mean, maybe I'm just speaking personally because of pianos, but I mean, we use plastic glassware there, you know, and the thought of drones flying around, you know, which
You just
someone
need
could
one.
hit or
Really just need one.
throw at somebody. Yeah.
I think there's a company that I really love called Skydio. Just a quick shout out to them. I mean, they have technology where like it can follow, you just like show it this snowboarder and it'll just follow the snowboarder down the mountain, and like no one has to control that. Right. That's how you get some of these crazy videos. You're like, how could anyone have possibly recorded this? You're getting it from a drone. Right. So if we bring some of that stuff to the live concert space, as long as your venue has ceilings and whatever to accommodate it, then, you know, it's a really cheap way if you're concerned about the overhead and getting your venue suited up with gear.
Sense.
I got 18-foot ceilings. I'm happy with that.
There you go.
While we wait for Clay to get back on, I did want to come back to the spacesuit and just like general creative ideas for kind of getting people to come back and getting warm bodies in a space. Like, have you guys seen any or heard any wild ideas on how to get, people to, once venues open back up, we don't know that means people will start coming out. I mean, there will be some, but that doesn't mean everyone will. So what are some creative ideas you guys have been seeing or talking about that can relate to the spacesuit or other things that are like, here's how we make people comfortable again and also make it a part of a cool experience?
I can, it's like I say, we're in New York City. We're mandated by the health department. We're mandated by all of these departments. So it's like, that's why I got frustrated with all of these webinars, because it's so fluid. I mean, how do we keep people 6 feet apart from coming in? How do we keep, the restrooms functioning? How do we keep, can you imagine, even if you had, my legal capacities 300. So even if I had 75 people come in for a hip hop show, do you think I can place 75 people in that room that aren't going to all be within 2 feet of the stage? I mean, I don't know how, and it keeps changing. That's the reason for me right now, it's like, okay, I just got to wait it out and see, because the spacesuit's cool, but maybe they won't allow spacesuits,
Yeah.
I mean, the spacesuit's definitely fascinating, but I gotta ask though, like, what do you think is going to be standard? Like, do you think for, let's say whatever many months or maybe even years that, like, I'm hearing, thermometers at the door, like face masks mandatory, like you have in grocery stores. Like, what is the new mandatory going to look like from your guys' side?
I think I completely agree with Larry. I mean, I think it's, you can't avoid the fact, especially in Manhattan, that these are, small rooms. I mean, even compared to elsewhere in the United States, in Manhattan, what they'll call a 300 cap room. You walk in and you say, how can 300 people fit in here? What I think could be a game changer is, obviously everyone's talking about these contact tracing apps. And one of my, reservations about it recently has been the fact that it's kind of reliant, at large on everyone downloading it and it working and everyone doing their due diligence in the fact of self-isolating if they've been exposed to somebody. But the interesting thing I think about is if you manage to program the apps in such a way that if you showed up to the venue, you had to prove via the app that you were not exposed to somebody in the 14-day window that it would take. I think that's a really interesting way to consider things, because I think, the dividers at the bar, the thermometers, they're all great ideas. But at the end of the day, venues, because of the liquor thing, we don't necessarily want people wearing masks, all the time. I think especially, as we're also a nightclub and things like that, I think it's one thing to be an outdoor venue. And if you're solely putting on concerts, it's fine to have your audience wearing a mask. But if you're at a bar nightclub where people are hanging out, it's a vibe killer.
Yeah.
I mean, have you guys ever been to a concert in Tokyo?
No,
No.
I have not. But
No.
Yeah, like half the crowd has a mask on.
That's, yeah.
Korea,
It's
Korea,
a lot more in their culture.
Yeah.
That's part of the culture. And you
Part
look
of the
at, my
culture.
son lives in Tokyo, and before this all happened, half the people were wearing masks, and they were already cleaning public transportation twice a day. All the stuff that we've mandated here now, they've been doing for years. So I mean, it's
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
absolutely.
mean, I'm supposed to, this is kind of like an aside, but I'm supposed to be getting married in August if that actually happens. And we've been like, oh, maybe we lean into it. We embroider the masks with our initials, like
That's
something,
so funny.
right? Maybe there's a
Lean
way
into it.
to lean into it. I don't know what that is. Make them glow, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm sure there are people already designing things like that to at least please the EDM crowd. I mean, they're the first people who have already, besides the hype beasts, who have adopted the face mask to be a thing years ago as just a style element. So like, I don't see it being too much of a vibe killer as long as there's some fashion involved. But yeah, I mean, it is definitely a transitionary experience for people who never had to wear them before. I mean, it's just different. That's
I mean,
the
Burning
truth.
Man, like everyone's got
Right.
goggles on, but that's not
Right.
vibe killer. It's,
Yeah, and I think we'll see a huge shift in how people kind of handle that and how they accessorize it and all that good stuff as we move into, shows coming back to life. It's not going to be we switch the lights back on and everything goes back to normal. Like, that's just not the truth. And it's really just, how do you make people feel comfortable and like embrace that kind of thing? It's culture. Culture's constantly evolving and doing what it needs to do. That's just my little rant. Back to questions. Okay, so as of May 13th, Ticketmaster, which is owned by and operated by Live Nation, has thus far processed more than 600 million in refunds. And this is a touchy subject. I mean, we all know refunds fucking suck and no one likes to give them, and it's a money killer, but according to Ticketmaster president Jared Smith, an amount that is growing every day. So even worse. How are you guys seeing independent venues handling ticket refunds, and how is it impacting your businesses? I mean, you can say whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but yeah.
I gave immediate refunds, like, again, very different. From the beginning, we refunded every single show right at the start, because I just felt, again, the venue holding on to money that, the fans, give it back to the fans. And hopefully if the fans supported the artists, when we reschedule a date, they'll resupport the artist. And I didn't think we should play with fans' money. So I know a lot of other venues in the city, kept on saying, oh, we'll hold it, we'll reschedule, we'll do this and that. And I just didn't believe in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Same boat. I mean, we refunded immediately. The first day everything shut down, we refunded everything. I mean, once again, I mean, as a smaller venue, I feel like it's less of an issue, especially in terms of selling advance tickets. I mean, financially, personally for us, it didn't make a huge difference, because usually the credit card transactions that you get from advanced ticket sales actually take, a week or so, or a few days, surprisingly long still in 2020, to enter your bank account. So most of the stuff we didn't lose. It was more of, a theoretical loss, but it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
But I know a lot of independent promoters that kept on holding on to it. And, a month, 2 months later, they said they gave back like 2% refunds at that point. So, again, I don't think it's a one answer fits all. I mean, it's more of a moral issue that I don't want to hold fans' money. This show is definitely not going to happen.
Yeah.
When it does happen, hopefully they'll all come back.
I feel like it's been a harder thing for festivals to be able to do rather than independent venues. But yeah, I mean, there's no way around it. It's just something that has to be done. And I'm glad that you guys were able to just do it quickly.
Well, and Ari, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too. I mean, I'm hearing that a lot of promoters and concerts are looking to switch, like if I were to have bought a ticket to X show, right, and they're looking to move that show digitally and honor the amount of money that you were purchased for that ticket, to buy into that model that you were just recently talking about. Is that something that you would recommend for shows that you think maybe getting canceled late summer into fall, to come work with platforms like yourself to kind of, I guess, simulate that experience so that they feel like they got the value out of that ticket? Curious to get your thoughts here.
Well, first off the bat, I definitely respect and agree with what Larry and what these guys did with their venues and the refunds right off the bat. I think that was the right call. We have seen in some cases that promoters might not have immediately refunded the tickets, and they're trying to do something digitally. I mean, it really depends on what the price point was. I think anything probably above like $30, you should be refunding it or partially refunding it and giving them like this digital experience. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it really just depends. we have been approached in the past few weeks with a few bands. They're going to try to do these digital make goods, if you will. And we'll have to see what the fan reaction is to that. I don't really know. I think people in general are pretty understanding about stuff. If an artist is really making an effort, if they're doing something unique, like something we did with Erykah Badu that was really unique. She had 3 different physical rooms in her house that each had different instruments and a different green screen. So they kind of had a different vibe. And so she had like predefined the set list, but the audience got to choose which room they performed in. And so like one room was a bossa nova room, one room was more traditional, and one was like a experimental room, which was like beat machines and synthesizers. So like that experience, you probably couldn't even pay for it if you wanted to in the real world, because it would logistically not even make any sense. But in the digital realm, you know, I think people on Twitter were like, this is the best $3 I've ever spent in my life, you know, from a value standpoint. So I thought that was significantly underpriced. Then I got on the phone with the manager the other day, and we're showing her all the things we can do. And she was just like, yeah, I just want like a video on a page and I don't want any distractions. And I was like, well, that's kind of like if you were performing to a crowd and you told the crowd, you can't see each other, you can't speak to each other, you can't make any sound, you just have to watch me perform. Like no one would do that. It just like makes no sense. So like there's a part of the education that has to go with the artists. Like this is the way people interact digitally and consume your content. Guess what? When they're at your show, even if you're doing the wildest performance of your life, they're whispering to their neighbor and cracking a joke and whatever. Like that's part of being social and going out with friends. So to prevent that digitally is ridiculous, right? So like we're seeing things come from like all different angles, and the industry is just in there's such a wide range of stuff we're hearing and seeing every day.
I love that.
I don't know if that fully answered your question, but just some anecdotes I'm pulling from here and there about.
I think it really does, because I think what you're saying is that the value is in the fan digitally being able to talk to or being kind of like connected to that artist. So it's not just like a broadcast channel with no two-way form of communication.
Yeah. I mean, another thing we're telling artists is like, look, if you want, do your free stream, or even better, do a 10-minute like promo stream thing on Instagram. And at the end of it, tell everyone, okay, guys, we're going over here. We're going to do a pay stream. You know, now we're going to do the concert. And they go over there, and let's say that's $5. And then during it, you say, hey, we're going to do a private VIP stream after this. That's $50, $100, whatever. And that's going to be like with only 10 people or 20 people or 100 people, and it's going to be just you and the artist, and maybe they can get on the video and you can see each other and they can like acknowledge you. How much would you pay for that, to talk to Rihanna or to talk to like even,
I know a lot of people would pay a lot of money for that.
And this is the thing, again, coming back to the math.
Yeah.
Let's say Rihanna did this and she charged $1,000. Okay, there's 100 people that would pay $1,000. That's $100,000. You know, like these things add up. Right. And I think, so like, how often can you do them, and how many fans are there that will pay for these things is an open question. I don't know, but we got to do some more experimenting.
I think the experimenting on the Rihanna size artists, there's a lot more opportunity, obviously, for them across the board, because from like, I work from the brand side, and I've had about 6 or 7 brands that were traditionally video gaming brands. I'm talking, you know, brands that had really dealt in esports that are now moving from esports into like this live streaming music space, coming to us and saying, well, we're seeing a lot of activity in live music, like how can we get involved? And their first question is like, how do we get involved with the big artists? I guess my question to you is like, you know, if there are independent managers are out there, or artists that, you know, don't have that Rihanna like level, that are obviously, you know, more in the smaller to mid tier, how would you recommend using, I guess, that same strategy? Like, would you recommend, I guess, that same strategy for whatever tier of artists, or is that just for the A-listers? Or I'm curious to get your thoughts maybe on like the lower tier, like the smaller artists who may be tuning in.
Yeah, so a couple points. First is we really got to get out of this like advertisers are going to come save everything idea. They're not, right? They only work at scale. They only care about the biggest artists, because only the biggest artists have scale. It completely falls apart once you get behind, like underneath the top 1% of the market. That's not going to help the music industry. That's only going to help the artists that are already rich get richer. Okay, so that is just like throw that out the window, in my opinion. Right? Have you heard of a site called Cameo?
Yeah, I have
Yes.
heard of it.
Okay,
I've worked with Cameo before.
great. So on Cameo, you can pay like $100 for a famous actor or celebrity to like do a 1-minute pre-recorded video, shout you out, like shout out your wife for her birthday or her anniversary, you know, whatever you want to do. This thing is like shot up like a rocket. Now, given what you just said, what type of talent would you expect to be doing the best on Cameo? The top talent.
Yeah.
Turns out it's not. The type of talent that's succeeding the most on Cameo is the mid-tier talent, because it turns out that like there's actually really rabid fans, like for streamers or for influencers, that they just want that like intimate, direct interaction with their star, with their hero. And like, so this model works if you're big or if you're small. The price points might be different, or they might not be, right? There might be a fan out there that like you're their top fan, even though you're like, you've got 50 subscribers or whatever, right? And they'll pay like $100, or they'll get their mom to give them $100 because like you are their everything. Just find those fans. You need small numbers with the right price points to make the same money you're making with bigger numbers. Just got to really get that math down.
So you're saying like the 100 fans, 1,000 fans theory kind of.
Yeah, totally. I mean, what's the experience for 10 fans that pay you $10,000? Figure that out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm loving that you're really pushing this perspective, and obviously it's a part of your ethos, and I really appreciate that, because I think more people need to understand and think outside the box in this sense, because as we've noticed in this time, like this is not just the new normal now, but nothing's going to be the same after this. And I think now people are finally paying more attention to streaming in a way that, I mean, they never took seriously before, or didn't really know like the value of how to create, you know, a funnel in a sense, on how to, you know, develop more money into the, you know, the digital space. It's always been like, we sell merch online, you can stream us online, that's about it.
Right.
But this really adds another level of like, let's build a strategy around this that is truly valuable to our fans and to us for sustainability purposes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, right on your point, the next major economy that's changing the world is the passion economy or the creator economy, right? If the last economic revolution was the industrial revolution, which was like the commoditization of objects and trying to bring down the price as much as possible in mass distribution, the passion economy is the polar opposite economy. It's like, do the thing you're passionate about, find the fans that are super passionate about the niche thing that you're into, and don't try to go big, keep going small, and maximize the revenue from that core audience. That's all you need to do, right? The next wave of, like, if you're a couple and you want to start a small business, in the next, I mean, even today, you're much more likely to start a content business than a brick and mortar business, right? Like, this is going to be the next wave of the next major economic wave is going to be the passion economy or the creator economy wave.
Absolutely. So, I think quality over quantity is
definitely
the thing that's, I mean, you see it more and more where people are trying to be even more authentic in the content that they're creating, because they're so sick and tired of that commoditized, you know, glazed over aesthetic everyone else is already doing. So love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's bounce back really quick to a topic that I'm seeing, you know, a lot of people cover right now, which is liability insurance. We're seeing that, you know, a lot of concert promoters and venues are semi-worried about how COVID could impact, you know, insurance and the liability of if somebody gets sick in your venue, you know, do they have the right to, you know, come and sue you guys? Like, how does that all work? How can you be protected? Larry, I guess I'll go with you first, because I mean, you've been doing live shows for 30 plus years. How are you thinking about insurance in like the post-COVID world, assuming that we can get back to, you know, live concerts at some point in the future, whether it's 2021 or Q1, Q2? And do you think insurance is going to be a really big part of your thought process? Is there new thoughts that you're thinking about in that space? Curious to get your feedback.
Again, it's too early to say, and it's, again, a lot of it will be, you know, mandated by the state or mandated by the feds, or just, it's going to be ultimately, you know, is it going to be on the venue? I mean, is it going to be on the artist? You know, in this situation, it's, you know, at this point, again, it's all hypotheses. I have no idea. So I can't imagine an independent small venue is going to be held responsible. And if it is, you can wipe out every single independent small venue because the amount of insurance it's going to cost will absolutely not make sense. I just want to, not to be a politician, but I wanted to go back to what Ari was saying. You know, what you just said was almost a continuation. You know, in the hip hop world, they started dropping the mixtape, free mixtape. And then, you know, okay, you got a bit of exposure, and then you did, you know, a concert. And then in the last few years, you know what? We're going to do meet and greets after the concert or before the concert. So each time, you know, the revenue sources were changing. So, you know, from not making any money in the mixtape to all of a sudden that be the pathway to a concert. And in the last few years, hey, let's do a meet and greet. We'll charge an extra $50 a fan to get an autograph signed or to get a picture taken, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, that's actually changed the model, at least at SOBs, because, you know, it's additional revenue and how much went to the artist, how much went to the venue. So it's really, to me, it's a continuation of what you just said. That's all. Just wanted to
yeah, it's definitely evolving. I mean, we see people like wait in line for hours for an autograph or for whatever with an artist. Like, yeah, these things are
money for it.
And pay stupid money for it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. I
But
mean,
like,
I've
you know,
seen on meet and greets, take a picture, you got literally 10 seconds, and people are spending an extra $50, $60.
Yeah.
Just that
I mean, you guys will love this analogy, I'm sure. I asked the question a bunch of times, like, what's the bottle service of live streaming? Right? Like, how do we get there? What is that? Right? Like, we got to be thinking that way to figure out what's the next wristband up that you can get, you know, and how do you pay me more for the next wristband?
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
As a framework for thinking about it, right?
Is that adding physical like products attached to it, or is that adding more digital aspects to it? That's fascinating.
I'm just throwing ideas out there. I don't know.
No, for sure. Jackson, do you have any thoughts about all this good stuff?
I mean, you know, I come back to the same, you know, thought, which is basically that once again, even if you're streaming and even if you're harnessing your 10 fans or 100 fans at $1,000, that's can be great for the artist, and that's the artist side, but it's still, where does the venue come in that? And the thing where it does make me slightly sad is, you know, ticketing was largely the one area where venues could give back to artists. You know what I mean? We could really lower our take. You know what I mean? I remember, I mean, even for us, like, you know, and if anyone's watching this, they might be annoyed, but, you know, for touring bands or bands we really like, we would even lower our, you know, normal take sometimes to nothing. You know what I mean? If we felt so that the artist could take 100%. Now, if they're doing, you know, if they have 100 fans that'll pay $1,000, I mean, I don't see, for small venues that have mostly up and coming talent, who would be able to do that. And I mean, even if you lower the amount substantially and people would still pay a little more than they would a normal ticket, us taking half of whatever that revenue would be, even if it's $2,000 or $1,000 or whatever, that still wouldn't be enough to float a venue. And I would feel bad that we're, you know, skimming off a lot from the artist.
Really good points. I mean, so it does make it hard. I feel like for venues, the challenge really is, you know, how do you actually monetize digitally without it being too low and not worth the time, energy, whatever it is. But, you know, at least, I don't know, because it still needs to be profitable. It can't just like keep the lights on, because then what is the fucking point, you know? So yeah, I don't know that answer, honestly. Like, I mean, have you guys been seeing or floating around ideas that, you know, you want to test in the near future that you think are worth sharing?
Not yet.
Yeah, I got nothing.
So you guys are really in the, like, we're trying to figure this shit out. We're just seeing how things go day by day. We're just rolling with the punches and kind of trying to go from there. That kind of seems like the case. I mean, all across the board from a lot of venues that I've talked to.
There's so many variables. There are so many variables, and there is so much that can change. You know, I mean, as of right now, I think the only kind of solace that, you know, we could take, speaking from the venue side, is that, you know, eventually, we don't know when that is, eventually things will kind of level out. I understand that they will not go back to what they were, but things happen in history. The Spanish flu happened. You know what I mean? Civilization goes on. And I think people want to see live music, and live music will return.
Larry, thoughts?
Hey, I really like the idea of drones and spacesuits at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with Jackson in the sense that, look, theater has been around for hundreds and, you know, live theater for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's going to transition as well. But at one point, it's still going to stay the same. You know, you're going to have live theater. You know, in another month or so, they're going to show Hamilton on TV or on HBO or on one of them. But so I think the art's going to always be there. How it gets presented and how it reaches the public is constantly going to change. And but it's hard for, you know, me to project that. I mean, I'm fascinated with a lot of the stuff that Ari is saying, because I think these are additions to the live, you know, music experience. I don't think it takes away. I think it complements it. And as venue operators, we have to, and as venue operators who have to deal with artists, managers, and agents, you know, the industry, we all have to figure out how this is going to get carved up. And once again, you know, we got the big boys of Live Nation, AEG, you know, with the little boys of, you know, SOBs, pianos, etc. So that to me is like the fascinating part, but it's the future. It's like I say, we're not going back.
Yeah. And I'll say, you know, a lot of what Ari has been kind of voicing in this panel, I think is really important, because what I'm going to take away from this at the end of the day is that we continue to give away free content. And I don't think that's going to help our case in the future. You know, like if we give away free content and we allow the consumer to think that it's free, then, you know, they're going to perceive that it's free for a very long time. And we look at how the record business turned out, right? I don't think, you know, they're selling physical records like they once did back in the peak of the 90s, right? And that was because a very innovative tech entrepreneur kind of put it in consumers' heads to say, hey, shit, music's free. You know, like, so I really voice what, you know, I really think what you're saying, Ari, just like is really important right now for artists to really get into their minds. Because like I said, I had a manager that called us and said, you know, what is the time frame that we should start to think about, you know, monetizing concerts and asking people to pay? And what you're pretty much telling us is that it has to be immediately.
It has to be now.
Like, because the longer we wait, the longer it can last. That people in their minds will be thinking, you know, shit, I'm gonna get this stuff for free.
We got to rip off the Band-Aid. Have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what it is it's just a little more nuanced sophistication. You should still have free stuff that's promotional and whatever that you put on social platforms. Make use of the built-in audiences that are there. But think about what of my content is premium and where can I charge a premium for it? And differentiate those two things. It's just two levels, right? Free stuff and premium stuff. That's it. We should be able to grok that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm loving all these perspectives. I think you guys have all brought such interesting takes to this whole conversation. And I know we probably should wrap it up at this point. And I would love to get a final take from each one of you on what are your predictions? What are your final, like, this is what people need to hear about, you know, the foreseeable future and how to get past, you know, this transition.
Jackson, you can go.
All right. I'll go first. Well, I mean, you know, to summarize some of the good things from the venue side, you know, to kind of start on a positive note, I think if you are able to survive this, as I said earlier, there stands to be gains. I think you'll have less competition. I think you'll have the opportunity for more underplays from bigger artists. You're going to have a greater supply pool of talent that can really draw. You know, on the other side of the things, I think it will be, the live concert will be something that will be in a certain way forever changed. I think, you know, Ari is right. I think a lot of places should really consider a new model of streaming every concert and figuring out other ways to kind of monetize things. At the same time, I am truly not worried. I don't believe the same thing will happen that happened to the record companies, you know, because the fact is CDs and Spotify's and whatever, it's really comparing, you know, apples and a slightly more convenient, tasty, cheaper apple, you know, that you can buy and eat. Whereas streaming concerts and going to a live concert, that's apples and oranges. They're two very different things. And I think it will be interesting, as Larry pointed out, to kind of see, you know, where the pie breaks, and, you know, after streaming concerts does take more of the market, kind of what's left in the kind of live music sphere for venues. But I'm remaining optimistic, and I honestly think a lot of these things we're talking about in terms of, you know, a lot of venues closing down, in the long run, venues will open back up. It will just take time.
Great take. Ari, what are your thoughts? Final thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what Jackson has said. Every downturn has just as many opportunities as it does, you know, tragedies or whatever. I think that we should all believe that concerts are coming back, because they are. They're going to be in full force. I think people are going to be hungry. They're going to be out to spend money. They're going to be out to have a great time. They're going to be out to party harder than they did before. And that'll wear off after a little while, but it'll be really strong for a minute, right? I do think that this is an opportunity to take a step back and reflect on, you know, how did we become so vulnerable as an industry? And really think about that. Like, are we going to let it be as vulnerable as it is now again in the future? This isn't the only pandemic we're going to have. This isn't the only last global disaster we're going to have. If anything, this has shown how susceptible we are to the interconnectivity of the world. And, you know, we need to think more about that. That's all. I think that you're going to see a lot of people experiment with different things. Maybe this will be kind of like the next renaissance of the music industry in disguise, where we're all going to try to like build the new model for the future, and we're going to find new ways for tons of artists to be making more money than they were before. I mean, I hope so. And I hope that we're part of that change.
Yeah, well, with all the advice and the tips that you gave and the new types of thoughts that you know, have put into the marketplace just in this panel, I think is really going to, you know, flip some people's perspectives on what's possible. So we just wanted to thank you all. I know Larry must have left, or his screen must have ended, but want to thank you all for coming. Ari, thank you so much for you know, coming in and joining and sharing your perspective from a tech side. Jackson, thank you so much, and obviously thank you so much to Larry Gold from SOBs. Really appreciate all the time that you guys have given, and
Yes.
Yeah, we hope to see you guys come back soon.
Oh, yes,
and we need
before
to
you
make
guys
sure
go, give us where people can find you guys and your companies that you guys work for or /own.
So you can find me. I'm Ari at maestro.io. That's also our website if you want to check us out, maestro.io.
Awesome. Jackson?
And, you know, our social media, I mean, our Instagram is at PIANOS NYC. That's where you can see what we're up to.
Amazing.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
I'll just throw SOBs out there.
Yeah.
Larry, you can think he's on Instagram. LGSOBs is his handle. You can find him on SOBs.com, and you can always hit up Marianne here, who I think runs the social. So
Yes,
always
and
say hi to her.
SOB's Instagram is SOBS NYC. Go check them out. Great venue. Thank you guys so much. This has been really awesome. Such a good flow. I just loved everyone's perspective. And Larry's back. Thank you.
Lost it for a little bit. I still
Yeah, no worries. We quarantine, you know. But we just wanted to make sure that if somebody wants to reach out to you, whether they're managers or tech companies, off of some of the stuff that you've been saying, like how can they reach out to you guys? Did we lose Larry again?
I think we lost him again. That's okay. We shouted him out. He'll see it in the recording later. But seriously, guys, thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's to the fucking future. Let's see what happens.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on another amazing episode of Fast Forward, presented by CAD Management, Austere Visuals, and of course our amazing partner LinkedIn.
Yes.
So, yeah, and we got a good show next week.
Absolutely. You want to give them a preview of what's going on next week?
Yeah, we're actually be dipping away from the music a little bit and moving into fashion. So we're going to be talking a little bit about retail and how the retail landscape is changing because of the pandemic. So please tune in. And where can they find us? What's our Instagram again?
Yes, so we are Let's Fast Forward, FWD on Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel that we have been uploading all of these panel interviews at. So if you want to go check us out, you can get to our YouTube from our Instagram bio link, whatever it is, because then it's just the easiest way. And yeah, you can watch all these on your own if you want. We talk, to different people from different parts of the industry every week on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. So catch us next week, and we will see you guys then.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks. Bye.